Wellness and welcomes. And this is the Heal Always podcast with your friendly neighborhood counselor, Dr. Will. And I am so excited to be here with you all today because this is the beginning of the silver age of psychology. It's the beginning of my healing modality. And this is my first time presenting it in its fullness, in its most authentic experience I can. So you're going to be engaging in psychoeducation. You're going to be engaging in healing. You're going to be engaging in secondary healing. And you're going to be learning some new words, some phrases. And what's most importantly is that this is the beginning of this. And there's going to be 10 episodes that I'm going to be teaching you all this, because anything after that, I'm not going to be teaching it. So you have to learn this now. This is where we learn it. So I hope you're ready. Let me get my tea together real quick. Just get my tea together. Great. Because this is about to be so beautiful. And I'm really excited to do this with you all. So make sure you get your tea. Make sure you get your purpose paper and your purpose pen or pencil. Make sure you get your affirmations. And we're going to get started. So, the healing modality is called R.E.S.E.T. R.E.S.E.T. Why did I call it reset? It's because I realized that in life, we're always stuck with these type of lifestyles, these experiences, these relationships that never really get us to the point of feeling free or liberated. We always feel like we keep recycling ourselves. But the whole point about recycling is that you're supposed to turn new. And so what I've noticed is that within my work and within other people, they would recycle, but they would return back to the same thing. And so that level of monotony, that level of cycling, it becomes really hard and makes us a lot harder. It makes us harsh about life. And it makes us kind of not strong enough to be vulnerable. And so what I wanted to offer is the philosophy and the theory of what I've created. And maybe it can be something that you can adopt or maybe integrate into your own life. And so I'm so excited that we can be here. And so before I get started, let's just take a deep breath real quick. So as my hand goes up, you breathe in with your nose. And then when I lay it down, breathe out with your nose. So ready? Good job. Keep going. One more. Great job. Really proud of you for doing that. And if you didn't, you can always go back and you can do it again if you feel like you're not ready. So, what is reset? R-E-S-E-T. It means remove every saturation, embrace truth. So, we have to remove things. So much is happening in our lives. If you want new things into your life, we have to learn how to remove things. So this is based upon minimalist thinking, right? Less is more when you're doing the most, right? Less is more when you're doing the most. So you have to remove some things in our life to make sure that we can make space for the new. Everything. Everything. So people, places, and things, situationships, circumstanceships, all the other ships that you can think of, we have to look at everything. Everything is a possibility. Everything is an actual content of wellness. The good, the bad, the right, the wrong, the ugly, the pretty, they're all lessons. It's all an experience that you have to create for yourself. And so when we're creating this, we have to understand that everything is content. Even the hard things, the easy things, the pretty things, it's all content. So you have to meet triumph with disaster and treat those two imposters just the same, right? So it's important to understand that we have a process, we have an experience, we have the ability and the effort to make change with everything we're a part of. And sometimes those comfortable things are some things you need to examine too, right? Now, saturation. Why did I choose the word saturation? Because unfortunately, in our lives, especially in my American life, we are saturated with so much media, so much information, infographics, data. We are consumed by algorithms, not just online, but with people. Our country, our society, our space is made by these relational algorithms of how we're supposed to be expected, how we should perform, how we should experience things, and unfortunately, we're actually battling between expectations and standards. Do you even know the difference? Ask yourself, write this down. What's the difference between expectations and standards? And so it's really important for us to start to get to understand, what does it mean for me to feel saturated? What does that mean for me to feel saturated? And what you'll notice is that stress is a great identifier of saturation. When you experience too much stress, you become oversaturated, and it can almost feel gluttonous, right? But also, not having stress at all can also create a type of lethargic feeling or lethargic behavior that doesn't allow you to kind of enter the authenticity of your purpose. And we're going to get into that, right? So remove every saturation. And the other E, embrace. Why did I choose the word embrace? Because sometimes we like to try change. We like to try adjusting. We like to try our purpose. Sometimes we like to try things that are actually meant for us. And I'm asking you to trust the growth and the beginnings, these new old beginnings that you're experiencing, to actually embrace them. Sometimes it's better to know what you don't want than what you do want. And you won't know that unless you truly embrace that experience. So it's really important to understand that. So I need you to embrace this experience. I need you to embrace this podcast right now. Just embrace this moment, because there is a lot to consider. Okay? And lastly, T, truth. So it's really important to understand that your truth is a non-negotiable thing that is ever changing. I know that sounds kind of weird, but hear me out, okay? It's important to understand that your truth is something you define yourself by. You withstand through things. You have that resilience to truly embrace something. When you live in your truth, you can withstand a lot of things. It's almost like metal put to fire, it creates steel. My truth shall outlast situations. And some of us kind of live a misled truth, which is why we have to go back to every, right? Even our truth must be broken to be built again and bonded, right? Think about breaking a bone, right? If you don't reset, if you don't set that bone, that break, right? It'll heal over time, but you'll never get your full capacity. So it's important that if you are not ready, I might be saying things that might break some of your truths. And I want you to understand that I am truly about harm reduction. And I do not want to put anybody in a situation that makes them feel uncomfortable or puts them in a space that they may not be ready for. So if you feel uneasy at any moment, at any time when I'm explaining things, describing things, I'm going to be having some really difficult conversations with you. And these topics are, unfortunately, this is where I am at. And I can no longer filter myself. I've worked way too hard, and I need this to be out of my body, out of my system. And so I'm using this also for my own healing too. So I'm also wounded, and I can also help and heal people too. So I need to know that you're okay with your truth being questioned. You're okay with your truth being reinforced. You're also okay with your truth being ascended, right? For my spiritual folk. Truth is everything and nothing at the same time if you know who you are. So, reset. And why did I choose the word reset? It's once again to understand that in life, you may not need change, you may not need adjustments. The reset is understanding that there might be a clearing that has to occur in your life. And when it comes to mental illness, the problem isn't the actual mental illness, it's how you carry yourself through it. So, if I can help reset so you can realign yourself to a healthier track, I want to help remove every saturation you have and embrace the truth that it needs to be revealed. So, I'm so excited for you to be here with me. So, you ready to get into this world? Let's get into the philosophy, all right? I hope your tea is ready. Please tell me your tea is ready because it's about to go in, okay? That's great. Wow. Okay, so I like to do things in 3 levels. So the first level is the world, right? The first level is the world, okay? We all live in the world. None of us can say we don't live in this world. If you're listening to this, or if you're not in this world, I thank you for tuning in. But we're all in this world, whether we like it or may not understand it. So we have to understand that in this world, the philosophy of reset is that the world is going through an emotional homeostasis. What this means is that the world is in constant fluctuation for healing. Just like in Mother Nature, right? It adjusts every seasons, right? We have fall, winter, spring, summer. The adjustments, nature itself, right, is adjusting. When you think a mountain is so strong and so it's immovable, somehow water cuts through it over time, and then there's a new path, right? Nothing is forever, right? Nothing is forever, but eternity is now. Nothing is forever, but eternity is now. And so we have to understand that everything is being built and broken at the same time. Everything is replaceable and replenished at the same time. And so we have to understand that this world is going through an emotional homeostasis. Emotional homeostasis is understanding that our feelings, our identity, our ability to feel, we are all fractured in some way. We are all broken mirrors, right? And every person that you meet, whether you know them or not, is a piece of you and a reminder of a part of you that has been fragmented in some way. So it's understanding that we live in this world as a whole being a reminder of another person's part. It's important to understand this because the world is actively healing right now. So all the hurt, the famine, the fear, the scaredness, the happiness, how can we be happy knowing what's happening in another country? How can we be happy knowing that someone's losing a life? How can we be happy or joyful knowing that we just someone else lost somebody? How can we have all this happening at the same time? So we have to understand that in your world, you are experiencing something that is ultimately changing at this very moment. And someone right next to you is going through something that might be completely different, yet you're sharing the same space. Can you recognize that? Can you hear that? And can you acknowledge that? And so I'm in the understanding and reset that I have to look at this world is actively healing right now. And are you going to help it or are you going to harm it? Or are you going to hold it? We have a responsibility. And the rule here is that with self-awareness comes emotional responsibility. With self-awareness comes emotional responsibility. So this is in the book that I have. I've created it, and it's all in this book. And so I'm explaining it to you all here so you can actually actively get this. And you can also purchase the book as well. So don't worry if you're missing out on some things. It's okay. So level 1 is understanding that in the world, we are actively healing. We're all healing from something. Doesn't matter how great you had your life. Doesn't matter how rich you are. Doesn't matter how poor you are. We are all actively healing from something, which is why we all do need each other. And there is a call to that realization. Not everybody understands that yet, but you will going through this. Level 2, it's the relationships, right? So when it comes to the relationships, it's really important to know that our relationships actually define our motives. So in your own world here, right? Everybody has a relationship, whether you want one or not. And when you think about even trauma, right? We'll get into trauma talk later, but for those of you that generally know trauma, it's important to look at the fact that relationships are a combination of two entities or more, right? Especially in trauma. There's a relationship in trauma too. And so a lot of our relationships, our traumas, are created and then we live in motive. And motives, which we will define later, it has a lot of moments where you feel obligated to do these things. Well, if I do this, then this happens. 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 And you keep living this race of thinking that if you do something, something else will happen. So there's if-then mindset, right? And so in our relationships, a lot of times we're always put in these situations that we feel like we have to perform or we have to live our best representation to make sure we make it through this world. And so in Reset, we understand that our relationships are inevitable. And so you have to learn what makes you full and whole in a relationship. And we have to understand that. And how you position yourself in relationships is going to determine the prosperity or the scarcity of what you become, right? So it's really important to understand that, okay? So level 2 is about relationships. And then level 3, self. It's important to understand that you have to have a relationship with yourself. A lot of us have relationships with ourselves, but we don't actually make a conscious effort to do right by that, which is why right now in this era of finding your soft era, it's really just a return, or as spiritual folks say, a homecoming. It's a return or a retrieval, right? In Afrofuturism, we talk about the power of retrieval, right? And so it's really important that we look into what is going to make you feel seen. What is it that is going to make you feel like you have a purpose? And a lot of times our purposes are relationally driven and not individually found. And so I want to help balance this individualistic culture and this collectivistic culture. And how do we find this healthy medium between I am and we are? So it's important to understand what I am and we are. How does that share the same space? And how do you see yourself? So we're really going to build intimacy today too. And so understand the awareness of intimacy, right? The more I love you makes me see myself. That's the foundation to intimacy, right? So we'll get into that too. And so we understand that we have a world that is actively healing. We have a relationship that is motively driven. And we have a relationship with ourself that helps us find purpose. So these are the 3 ways and lenses of how we see the world. All right, so let's take a deep breath real quick. All right, let's get a quick drink of tea, really real quick. What I love about water is that when you put tea in it, it gives you a reason to wait. Because usually when you drink water, we don't really think about waiting to drink water. But when you have tea, it makes you reconsider the value of how you're drinking something. So that's why I always love having my tea with me at all times. So let's get into this. There's a term called moral distress. Moral distress is defined as knowing the right thing to do, but because of a barrier or institutional constraint, we're unable to perform at our greatest ability or at our best self. And what that does, it causes secondary traumas like burnout, compassion fatigue, poor job life satisfaction, overdrive. And I've learned in my research and working with clients that we are culturally and systematically dealing with, unfortunately, moral distress. We know what we want. We understand that we can't have it right now. But then we also realize that we can't put our best foot forward at times. We are culturally going through a moment in life where we know what we deserve. We know what we want that's better. We know what we shouldn't be doing. We know what could be better. We are upset by how things aren't happening. We are upset by what is not given to us. We're upset by what we have inherited. We have created these lives that are literally motive driven. Well, if I get the grades, I'll find this. If I get the car, then I'll have this. If I get the money, then this will happen. And yet it's still never enough. We have to come home. Sometimes you go so far out of your way only to learn why you had to come back. And you also had to be reminded about why you left too. So both are needed, right? And so I want to just make sure that we understand that moral distress is so important to understand, because our jobs and our lives are being combated with my best representation and my authenticity. A lot of us live our lives with trying to work on the best representative that we can. And over time we learn that it gets tired, it gets broken down sometimes. And we miss out on this authenticity that matters so much to us. That's why the phrase heal all ways is so important. And so when understanding moral distress, it's important to realize that we may be going beyond our capacity and we think what we're doing is what's best, but it's not what's healthiest. So you have to ask yourself, this is for you to write down, how am I living my best life and how am I living my healthiest life? Do two things, right? What is my best and what is my healthiest? How am I living both of these lives? And then ask yourself, how realistic is that experience? Is that okay? Do you want more? Do you need less? Do you need help? We are stressing ourselves out. And what did I say earlier? When you are being saturated, stress is a great identifier of realizing how saturated you are. I've also created a wellness assessment survey that you can get as well to help understand your energy output and input. So we have tools for this, right? That can start the conversation, right? So let's get into this. You know how earlier I talked about how we're moving into the silver age of psychology. So the Bronze Age was all about traditional therapy, right? Talk therapy is an extremely effective tool to help restore and balance things that may feel misaligned or out of place in your life. But we want to create a more holistic view about what that means. And so for me, I'm considered a holistic, experiential, integrative healer, right? So what I focus on is the traditional form. But what I also talk about is the actual silver age where it's more holistically applying. And so when I say holistic application, real quick, I don't mean, put a crack in your mouth and like think about how things are going. I don't mean just that. What I mean is I want you to make healing a lifestyle. And so here at the Washington Wellness Institute, we focus a lot on how to make healing a lifestyle. But before we can make healing a lifestyle, we have to see what type of finish line you've created before you came into this. Decreasing symptoms, decreasing depressive symptoms, decreasing anxiety-like symptoms is not the answer to wellness. And in R.E.S.E.T, we transform illness into wellness, trauma into purpose. And so I understand that to live your life, you have to remove the finish line. And sometimes the first 4 to 8 sessions of our talks is really going to be about what can we do to remove that finish line so that you can truly walk a path that you want to walk, right? Because moral distress is at an all-time high. And so I really want to make sure that we're applying this. So the beginning and the foundation of holistic application starts with understanding that there are 8 ways to look at yourself. Can you look at yourself in 8 different ways? So make sure you write this down. So I'm gonna get this tea out, but I need you to write this down. It's very important. It's very, very, very important. So 8 different ways. So write 1 through 8 on your paper, on your purpose paper. Okay. And I'm going to have you write these out. The first one is your physical health. The second one is your emotional health. The third one is your social health. Your fourth one is your environmental health. Your fifth one is your educational health. Good. You keeping up? You okay? Your sixth one is your financial, occupational health. Doing good. Financial, occupational health. Good. Your seventh one is your family health. Good. And 8 is your spiritual health. So I'll repeat it back just to be safe, okay? Got you. So your first one is your physical health. Your second one is your emotional health. Your third one is your social health. Okay? Your fourth one is your environmental health. Your fifth one is your educational health. Your sixth one is your financial or occupational health. 7 is your family health. And your 8th is your spiritual health. So, for your side quests, I don't give homework, I give side quests. So, for your side quest, I would love for you to make a really cool pie chart, 8 pieces, right? And put all of them in there. And if you are feeling really holistic, I want you to make 9 squares. So you make 9 squares, and you make one big square, right? And in that big square, you make 9 squares. So there'll be 3 rows, right? 3 spots. And you make the actual square, all the healing modalities, we call these healing modalities. You put each one all around it, and you leave the middle square blank. And you put YOU. And so understand that you are surrounded by these 8 different healing modalities. So we call it the physical health modality, the emotional health modality, the social modality, environmental modality, educational modality, financial occupational modality, family modality, and spiritual modality, right? So these modalities, and this is a nod to me being a musician, right? We have modals, right? And so these are types of healing, right? These are modalities. These are healing modals, right? And so it's important to understand that the way that you look at healing can be seen in 8 different ways. So if I see an amazing NFL player, right, their physical health is going to be amazing, right? And their emotional health has to be on tip-top shape, right? When I work with my NFL players, it's important to understand that their environment is so important, right? Sometimes it's not about who they are, it's about where they are. Their placement matters, right? And so it's important to understand that how they live their life, they have to see their lives in different ways, right? There's no one form of martial arts, right? Every body is different, and each body can connect with a different form of martial arts. So why can't the way that we heal be any different? So we have to understand that we all have our specialties, and you might be naturally gifted in one of these ways of healing. So I'm really happy to just give you that space. And For the next episode, what we're going to do is go through each one of these, and I'm going to explain each one to you. So I hope that this beginning is a soft landing into a very deep and complex modality of healing. And I hope that this made you feel kind of connected. And I hope it kind of rose some questions for you. The side quest about making that diagram, I hope that gave you a beginning of curiosity. The whole point of today was to build education, build curiosity, and help you give a soft landing into another way of looking at your life in 8 different possible ways. So, be kind to yourself and heal always.